Welcome to another edition of the D4 podcast. I'm Micah Ray, and today we'll be talking about a recent article that I wrote, went out for our newsletter as well as posted on our website. This one was titled Beyond Words, the $1.2 trillion struggle that organizations can't afford to ignore. And this one is really all about the cost of poor communication and what a drain it is on our productivity, both as individuals as well as in teams. There's one phrase that Mike and I hear people say almost, it seems like every week. Our organization really struggles with communication. Perhaps you've said that at your organization. I know that I've heard it a bunch of times at different places that I've worked. After a recent Five Voices boot camp session that we did for a local group, one person came up to us and told us that it was the top issue in the most recent employee engagement survey that they did. And poor communication can have a lot of different root causes. There can be personality differences. People have different skill levels. So, in some cases, it could be a lack of skill. It could be a lack of priority, where communication just isn't a priority for someone. Perhaps being rushed or feeling like I don't have time to communicate, that can be an issue. The choice of the wrong medium, uh, choosing email when it should be a phone call or choosing a text when it should be something else. Fear of feedback that really holds a lot of people back from communicating. They're just afraid of what the other person's going to say. So it can be a lot of different root causes. So recently, I began to wonder: has there been recent research done on the cost of poor communication? Is there some sort of tangible cost, or perhaps a way to quantify what it's costing us having these gaps or this lack of good communication? And of course, there has been. In fact, I found a Grammarly business study that was commissioned in 2021. It was updated again in 2022. And so this research is fairly recent. In fact, it kind of figures in the remote workforce, the remote arrangement for doing work, as well as work from home and hybrid workplace. And those, as you can imagine, only complicate the matter. So over the past couple of years, communication has not gotten better. In fact, it's even more of a struggle for many people in many organizations. The study goes on to say that the cost of poor communication amounts to a staggering $1.2 trillion per year for U.S. companies. Now, if you're like me, you're thinking that is a very large figure. So, how did they come up with that figure? Well, they go on to tell you later on in the study, like they should. They surveyed 251 business leaders and over 1,000 knowledge workers. So these are folks who have some bit of communication or using communication almost on a daily basis. They're the knowledge workers within inside of companies. These leaders estimate that their employees lose an average of about 7.5 hours per week due to communication issues. And this is across the spectrum of both written and verbal communication. Now, according to the surveyed companies, the average annual salary for one of these knowledge workers is about $67,000. So that means that 7.5 hours translates to around $12,000 lost for each employee annually. And if you extrapolate that across all the knowledge workers in the US, that's where they get the $1.2 trillion figure. So, I mean, that's a lot of money. If only they were half right. If they're only losing 3 hours a week, if it's only $6,000 a year, then that's still a really big figure. If you think about losing $5,000 or $6,000 in productivity per employee per year, I mean that can really start to add up. Even in small organizations, large organizations, the number gets really big really quick. Okay, so let me just kind of go through some of the other key highlights that were in the report. There's a lot more. I'll leave a link in the description where you can access the full report for yourself. But here were some of the other takeaways from the report. First of all, poor communication affects all of us. Okay, 100% of the respondents said that it happens at least once a week. 100%. So everybody is experiencing some sort of miscommunication or poor communication every single week that they go to work. Effective communication is essential for fostering inclusion. If you want to make sure everyone feels included and that they have a place where they belong in your organization, Good communication has to be at the heart of that. Another insight: 43% of business leaders attribute decreased productivity and the endangerment of their strategic business goals to poor communication. So, in other words, about half of all business leaders say that poor communication is a reason why they're not getting traction on their strategic business goals, or perhaps it's slowing them down from reaching their strategic business goals in some sort of way. Now, so not only a loss in productivity, but poor communication can also lead to revenue loss. 68% of the leaders surveyed said that they have lost deals due to miscommunication, and they estimate that those losses are probably $10,000 or more per instance, and 13% of them said it cost them more than $50,000. Okay, so this is somehow in the negotiation of the deal or in communicating the deal or getting communication back from a potential client or customer. Something goes wrong in the communication and it ends up costing the company money. It costs you money. Every time you lose a deal due to poor communication, it's costing you money. On the flip side of that, about 33% of leaders say that effective communication has helped them gain new business. Okay, so if you can fix the communication issue, not only are you reducing the amount of lost revenue that you might have, you're also increasing your chances that you gain new business and that you gain revenue. All right, and one last section of highlights for us to look at is that poor communication diminishes job satisfaction. 34% of knowledge workers say that poor communication diminishes their job satisfaction, and 50% of them say that it increases their stress. About half of the people that were surveyed said that their stress level goes up when they know communication is poor. As you can imagine, the hybrid work environment only complicates the matter, especially with asynchronous communication and an increased reliance on written communication. That just further compounds the problem of poor communication. Over 59% of Gen Z and 48% of millennials report that their personal connections have suffered in the hybrid workplace. That's not really surprising if you think about it. Once you're not in close proximity or in contact with other people, it gets even harder to communicate. And so personal relationships or even work relationships start to suffer. There's just not that connection and that camaraderie that exists when you're in person in the workplace. A significant 79% of the workers, 79%, say that effective communication boosts morale and productivity. When communication is good inside of an organization, when it looks like the leaders are leading the way in effective communication, it actually serves to boost morale and to boost productivity. Now, there's a lot of other valuable insights in there. It's a 20 some page report. It's talks some about the brand impact of poor communication, how tone and communication changes reception, how communicators that are really adept, they're better equipped to perform in their roles. So, in other words, as a person gets to be a better communicator, it actually helps them perform in their roles much better. So, I'll leave a link down below for the report, and you can access the whole thing and read through it if that interests you. So the report concludes with an insight or a summary statement that I thought was really, really helpful. This kind of summarizes in a very clear way how important communication is for organizations. So it concludes with this message. However, leaders who prioritize communication as a business imperative and take strategic steps to invest in communication solutions will unlock substantial value throughout their organization. Okay, so think about that just for a moment. The leaders in those companies or organizations who invest in better communication, when they increase communication skills, when they get communication right, it really can unlock substantial value inside that organization. So these leaders are basically saying they know that there's value trapped inside their organization through loss of productivity or loss of revenue. That if communication were better, it often just unlocks substantial more value. Not with more people, not with more stuff. It's just better productivity. I mean, think about it. If you were able to save hours per week for each employee, then that conclusion seems to make sense, and I believe it. After talking to the clients and working with people that we have, the corporate background and nonprofit background that we have, Mike and I have seen it over and over again When people learn how to communicate better, it just has a tremendous impact on the entire organization. So let's talk about an example. This happened just as recently as a couple of weeks ago. Mike was talking to me about a recent coaching call that he was on, and the client that he was coaching, she just emphasized how our tools had empowered her to have difficult conversations. It had given her this newfound confidence. It had given her a way to have those conversations. And trust me, it's a struggle for most of the leaders that we coach. There's always that one person or that one kind of situation that's tough to have that difficult conversation. I get it. Okay, so you're not the only one that struggles. But here was her exact words. Here's what she said to Mike on this call. It's like I can hear your voice in my head guiding me through the tools and helping me find the right words. Okay, so this is a person who's basically saying the communication improvement, the new communication skills that she has gained has helped her be more productive and to have the difficult conversations and to lead her team better inside the organization. Okay, like we just love hearing that kind of feedback. It is extremely gratifying to say the least. All right, so what can we do with this information for ourselves and for our teams? Okay, so first of all, let's think about how do you lead yourself better using this information? So first thing I would just say, if you haven't taken the Five Voices assessment, it's free to take. It can help you identify what your primary foundational leadership voice is and the style of communication that you find most natural. When you can identify that and start to lean into that as a strength and learn your superpowers, it can be extremely helpful in the way that you communicate to other people. And one thing that we often tell people is to make a list of your tendencies. Okay, so if you're going to know yourself better and if you're going to take some action to lead yourself better, then it would help to make a list of your communication tendencies. Okay, just think through what you go through in a normal day, interacting with other people, firing off emails, sending texts, you're on Teams, whatever it may be. Okay, is your tendency to be too quiet or to hold back information? Is your tendency to be too loud and to talk too much or to talk too long? Do you have a tendency to be really direct in your conversations, or do you hint around at what you want? Think about this. How are your tendencies impacting your team? So, if you were just to take and make a list of all those tendencies, and then you were to think about how do each one of those tendencies affect the people on your team? How does it affect the people around you? Okay. Think about this. How are your tendencies costing you time or creating stress for yourself? Okay. Some of the stress that we experience for ourselves is sometimes it's a stress of our own making, right? Like we've not communicated as much as we should, and so that creates problems for us, or perhaps we've communicated in the wrong way, and that creates problems for ourselves. All right, so choose to recognize those tendencies and then choose to take better actions to lead yourself this next week. Okay, let's think about leading your team. One of the best things you can do to help your team is to, first of all, understand their unique voices, help them understand how to leverage their superpowers, and teach them how to avoid using their voice weapons. Okay, this is one of the things we teach in our Five Voices system, but you can probably already kind of figure out sometimes what is somebody's strength and then what's their weakness when it comes to communication. So watch your team carefully the next time you're in a team meeting or a staff meeting. Really be observant as to how they communicate with other people and learn how to coach them. Find ways to help them overcome those tendencies and to become better communicators. So here's another testimonial. This one just came through also in the last couple of weeks. This is Cheryl, who's the CEO of Crimson Design Group, one of our clients, taking her team through the Five Voices system. Here's what she said. She posted this on LinkedIn. This was not something we solicited. She posted this unsolicited. So uh, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you very much. And look what she has to say about her team and what a difference communication makes. Team members are now more attuned to their primary voice and its impact in conversations with other team members. Being able to openly discuss and analyze each voice and restructuring communication approaches has undoubtedly made us a stronger unit. she's noticing both sides of that, right? Like people understand their own voice, but also they're listening differently to the voice of the other person and where they're coming from. And when you have that two-way dynamic that starts to happen, communication just gets better, teams get stronger, teams perform at a whole different level. Okay, so if you're interested in the Five Voices system, maybe doing that with your team, you can see a link down below to check out the Five Voices system. Reach out to us. We'd love to train your whole team how to use their voice better to make sure everybody is heard, valued, and appreciated. Last but not least, let's think about how to lead your organization. Okay, so not just yourself and your team, but if you're a senior leader, if you manage maybe multiple departments or an entire company, first of all, maybe you could just forward the newsletter or forward this podcast to each one of them, just have them listen through, and then maybe have a discussion as a senior team of leaders. Start asking yourself these kinds of questions. If your strategic plan is not being executed to its fullest, could it be that a contributing factor is poor communication? Ask yourself this question: if people are feeling stressed and anxious inside the organization, could it be because communication has broken down somewhere? Maybe there's poor communication in a department or from a key leader, or perhaps the wrong message is getting out. That can cause people to be stressed and anxious on their job. Next question: are you losing deals? If you're losing deals or losing sales or proposals, contracts, or however you sell to your client or customer, if those deals are falling through, could it be maybe because of poor communication? Is there something that's left out of that sales cycle or that sales conversation that needs to be improved? And then perhaps you, as senior leaders, can ask yourself this question: where have we, as senior leaders, failed to properly communicate to the organization, to our key leaders? Okay, and just spend some time thinking through that. Like, what could we do to communicate better, to get the message out, to get it out more clearly around what our strategic goals and plans are? The other thing I would recommend is just to set aside some time and a portion of your budget to improve communication. Be intentional about how you're going to train your organization and how you're going to develop them into better communicators. Okay, look to train in new skills. Look to train them in verbal skills as well as written skills. Look for new digital tools that can help facilitate communication, especially if you have a hybrid workforce, if you have people that are working some days out of the office or you're not all together as a team. You need to really spend some time, find the right tools that can help people communicate better and to facilitate the conversations in a healthy way. And then get additional training beyond just communication training, maybe additional training for your frontline leaders and managers, so that they can have better conversations with the people throughout your organization, but also so that they're more aware of it and they can also coach and train the people who work for them to be better communicators across the whole organization. As everyone improves, especially leaders, and they can lead the charge when it comes to good communication, then you'll see this new skill grow throughout the organization. And if you're looking for a program that can help those new managers or mid-level managers with a variety of skills, including communication skills, check out the Altitude training. There'll be a link down below for that as well. The Altitude program is, yeah, it's a leadership program, and it helps people with some basic leadership skills and mindsets and basic management skills. But there are some really good sessions in there about communication and how you communicate them. Of the 50 some lessons, probably 15 to 20 of them are just around communication, probably almost half of them. And so when someone goes through the Altitude program, we really spend some time on helping them become better communicators to the people around them and to their teams. All right, speaking of communication, just a little bit of update of where we have been and what we've been doing over the last month or so. We've been doing a lot of communication workshops. As it turns out, I didn't plan it this way, but it just seems that we've been doing a lot of communication workshops. Some of these are standalone individual workshops, some are boot camps just to introduce people to the whole concept of five voices and how to communicate better as teams. We've done one for the High Point Arts Council here locally in High Point, North Carolina. Also was able to speak at a business leader luncheon in Fayetteville with my good friend Chris Autry. Lenovo, we did some work with Lenovo in their user insights and research group. Mike led them through a boot camp down in Durham not too long ago. recently with Liberty Hardware, former employer, and helping them with communication and understanding all the dynamics of team communication. Crimson Design, we just mentioned Cheryl a minute ago. We're about to finish up a Five Voices program with them, and they have really, really benefited from it. Also, speaking of podcasts, if you want to know when to listen to, or if you want to kind of hear some background and story from me and Mike as to how D4 started and what it's all about and some of our backgrounds, we had the privilege of being on the Greater Winston-Salem podcast. I'll put the link down below once again for that as well. Deidre Miller, a good friend of mine, and also works at the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce. She led the conversation, was the host. She's a great host. Check their podcast out. You'll enjoy it. We talked about how we got our start as D4. Spent a little time talking about innovation, which is something near and dear to our hearts and something we love. And you can check that out. I'll put the links down below. So, for some last thoughts, losing time and money to poor communication does not have to be your reality. Okay, the right tools and training can help every one of us become better communicators. What's your responsibility? Evaluate yourself first. See how you can improve as a communicator, and then start to help other people around you improve their communication as well. When we work together like this, I think we can create better workplace cultures where everyone is heard and everyone is valued, and every place is a great place to do great work. Hey, if you're looking for a way to level up your skills as a leader or manager in this coming year, we have new altitude groups that are starting in 2024. There'll be a link down below. Check out the altitude training program. What we do is we take an online platform where you're learning the tools that we talk about, and then we put you into a coaching group with a few other leaders just like yourself. And in that group, we coach, Mike and I will be leading, facilitating the conversation, asking questions, coaching, helping you apply what you learn. And in that coaching group, you'll also get to learn from other people. You get to meet other people, network with them, and learn from them as well. I love hearing the conversations. Many times I learn something myself. I'm hearing something from somebody else and how they handled a situation, and it helps me. And so I love being a part of these coaching groups and just hearing the conversation, participating with that. We have new groups starting off in January, so get your space in one of those now. About every 90 days, new groups kick off, and these groups run for months at a time. Really helps you kind of learn the content in a pace in which you can apply it as you learn it. It is very reasonably priced. It's about $89 a month for the platform and the coaching bundled together. Check that out. It's not a big financial commitment. We want to make it that way so that lots of leaders can jump in. So sign up for one of the groups that's coming up this coming January, or check out the website, d4concepts.com/altitude. And there you can sign up and find out when the next group is starting. And you can be a better communicator with the people around you in your life, the people in your workplace. When you learn the tools, when you increase your skills, then you can be a better communicator. You can boost morale, you can boost productivity, and you can see your team become stronger each and every day. All right, so go out there and be a better communicator, and lead yourself first. And when you do, you can become a leader worth following.